Hello.
Hello, I'm Beth Britton. I support Dementia Community with their communications work. Welcome and thank you for joining us for our second July webinar. Before we get into the topic for today, I wanted to briefly explain a little more about Dementia Community. Dementia Community is a charitable community benefit society, a membership cooperative that provides learning and networking opportunities for the dementia care community. We are an independent voice and inclusive organisation aiming to help all of our members feel connected, informed, inspired, empowered, purposeful, and engaged in co produced changes that improve everyone's experiences of dementia care and also in wider society. This webinar is just one example of the many ways in which we do this. Community members own a £1 community share in Dementia Community, and membership is open to everyone. So if you aren't already a member, do join us. You can use the QR code on your screen or the link that will shortly be in the chat to visit our membership page. If you're having
Can
any
you
difficulties in joining
can you
Dementia
hear us? I
Community,
can't.
please do message Melanie or myself and we will be able to help. One of the many benefits of being a member of Dementia Community is a discount to our in-person events, which include our flagship UK Dementia Congress, now in its 19th year, and being held in Manchester on the 17th and 18th of November. Early bird tickets are live, so do grab yours. The programme is going to be fantastic and not to be missed. Do scan the QR code on your screen, or there will shortly be a link in the chat as well. I'd also like to highlight a new initiative we've begun, the editor's pick from the Journal of Dementia Care. This is a free article chosen by the JDC editor, shared to give you a taste of the content of the Journal of Dementia Care. Please use the QR code on the screen or the link shortly to be in the chat to read the article. Remember that as a member, one of your benefits is a 25% discount to your subscription to JDC. So if you do enjoy the editor's pick, do subscribe. And then finally, for our little early announcements, we also have 2 free issues of the Journal of Dementia Care available. Equality, Diversity and Inclusion, a special issue, and Celebrating the Arts in Dementia Care. Again, please use the QR codes on the screen or the links in the chat to read these issues. We'll also be sharing a link into the chat for that email address if you would prefer to email us in to get hold of your printed free copy of one of those 2 issues of the journal. Now, let's get on to today's webinar. Before I introduce our fantastic speakers, I just wanted to share that I am co-hosting this webinar today with one of my colleagues. And I just wanted to give a shout out to Maria. Maria, if you'd just like to introduce yourself.
Oh, hello everybody, and welcome to the webinar. My name is Maria Parsons, and I'm development lead for Dementia Community.
Thank you, Maria. So Maria will be taking over about halfway through to see you through until the end of the webinar. Hopefully a seamless experience for all of you as our participants today. So let's get on to the topic for today. So it's designing inclusive environments for people living with dementia. How much do we really know? Now, those of you who are eagle-eyed followers of our webinars will know that we have run this webinar before. We weren't able to record on that occasion due to some of the material not being permissible to share. So we're delighted to welcome back our speakers to reprise that webinar for us because it had such fantastic feedback. Let me just do a very bit of brief housekeeping just so that everyone's aware of how we will proceed with the rest of our afternoon together. So we are recording this webinar. You should have already been notified of that. So if you don't want your face on the recording, please turn your camera off. Please use the chat for your questions. Maria will be fielding the chat during the course of the webinar. And after the presentation, there will be an opportunity to ask our presenters your questions. And you could also come off mute if you want to indicate that you prefer to ask your question yourself. Afterwards, we will email you with a link to the recording, which will go onto our YouTube channel, Dementia Community, and any other related information as well. So that is more than enough from me. I would like to introduce you to our speakers for today. So please welcome Sarah Waller, CB, Associate Specialist, and Jennifer Bray, Research Assistant, both of whom are from the Association for Dementia Studies at the University of Worcester. Sarah and Jennifer, it's wonderful to have you back. Thank you, and over to you.
Okay, I'm just going to share our slides. So if someone can just let me know that you're seeing those.
We are, yes.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'll hand over to Sarah.
Okay, well, good afternoon. First, welcome from Jennifer, who's with me this afternoon, and we're going to do this together. I'm going to speak first, and then Jen's going to talk about some of our most recent developments. We're delighted to be with you, and we're going to focus particularly on designing for people with dementia in care homes and at home, because that's the conversation that we've been asked to have with you this afternoon, rather than looking at hospital environments or other places where people with dementia live. Firstly, I want to say that there's really good evidence now about the physical environment and its impact on people living with dementia. I suppose we really began to get a good handle on it at the same time as the National Dementia Strategy for England was published in 2009. And since then, there has been a lot of research work, unfortunately, not nearly so much in the recent past, which is sad. That may be due to funding or other things, because there's still some things we're going to talk about this afternoon that we don't really have very good evidence for. But for the majority of the things we're going to be talking about this afternoon, we have good research evidence. We know that a more supportive, enabling environment does help people living with dementia immensely in their lives. And that's the thing we really want to get over to you this afternoon. This is not about necessarily spending an awful lot of money. It's about doing the things we know that work. But the other thing I do want to emphasize at the beginning is that everybody experiences dementia differently. And what works for one person won't necessarily work for another. Now, when you're working with somebody at home or caring for somebody at home, that's absolutely fine, because you can construct an environment that's really going to be enabling for them. It's more difficult in care homes or hospitals or multi-use areas where people are living. But we'll go through this, and I hope that you're going to find a few things that you can do very easily wherever it is you're working. The other thing I think to bear in mind is that if people with dementia are happier in their environment, they're able to continue activities of daily living. That's also nice for any staff who are looking after them. So this is something really that benefits not only people living with dementia, their carers, but also the staff who look after them. Now, looking at environments for people that are unwell for any reason is not something new. I just wanted to share this with you. This is a quote from Florence Nightingale in 1885, and particularly she recognised that the therapeutic environment was really important for the people that she was looking after. She talked particularly about colour and light, two things that we're going to be talking about this afternoon, and she recognised that they had a physical effect. She also talked a lot about variety of form and colour being really important. And they were the actual means of recovery, in her words. I find this sometimes very difficult when I go through hospitals, care homes, other spaces where we've just sort of got magnolia everywhere. We don't seem to use colour enough to try and encourage people to move around or make things interesting, but not too much, I think, is the other thing. I once visited a hospital ward of 4 beds where they'd used different colours on every single wall and the floor and the ceiling. And if there was anything designed to give everybody a headache, it was that. Now, I'm sure you all know that because you're interested in dementia, otherwise you wouldn't be with us this afternoon, but it really is an umbrella term for a vast number of different types of disease, probably around 200, we don't really know. The vast majority of people who have dementia have Alzheimer's disease, They can also have vascular dementia at the same time, or they may have vascular dementia separately. There are another group of people living with different types of dementia, and I'm not going to go through all those. Now, the majority of the research work that I'm going to talk about, well, we're both going to talk about this afternoon, is really around Alzheimer's disease, which is 40 to 70% of all dementias. So it's where most of the research work has been focused. Now, I think it's very easy to think about people living in care homes or in hospital for another reason who have dementia, or in assisted supportive housing. What we tend to forget is that 70 to 80 people living with dementia live at home. I think we tend to forget about that. And certainly Jen and I are doing some work to try and encourage outside spaces at the moment to be more dementia friendly, because there are a lot of people who would like to have access to outside where it's a bit difficult at the moment. A third of those people are probably living on their own. Again, something at Worcester, we have a particular interest in meeting centres, which are a way of supporting people living at home, and any relatives or friends that may be looking after them. We know that a large number of people in care homes are living with dementia, which may be undiagnosed, as many dementias are. And unfortunately, this is a figure taken in 2009, and I wish the research had been, redone really. But 25% of people in general hospitals are probably living with dementia. That doesn't mean that they are in hospital for reasons of their dementia. They may, for instance, have fallen and broken their hip. But it is a reminder to all our colleagues who work in the NHS that there are a large number of people who are under their care. Just really a reminder here about the impact that dementia can have. Again, everybody will be different. But when you think about the things on this slide in relation to the environment, an awful lot of them are very important. We may, for instance, not be able to remember that we've been into a place before, even our home. We may see things very differently. We may find difficulty orientation to time and space. Mobility can be difficult, particularly for older people, and recognizing things that really could be quite familiar. And again, learning new things. So a lot of changes in the brain that can affect the way people see the environment in which they are living. So some of these become real challenges for people. Sight problems and visual perception can be extremely difficult for people. Getting lost even at home. Visual distortion and hallucinations. Some years ago, somebody was talking to me about a resident in a care home who would not go into the toilet. The toilet happened to have that flooring that's black and white tiles. I think you all probably can remember what that looks like. You've been in some, I'm sure. But they thought that the black tiles were actually snakes that were sliding across a white surface. So that I always find a really good reminder to me about some of the hallucinations that can occur. Things that are really busy. Now, that's not necessarily just things in a room that may be busy. It's also a lot of noise or a lot of clutter can be very difficult for people. We've talked about remembering things. People can become very isolated, as I'm sure you all recognize if they are living with dementia. We've talked about mobility. Getting outside and outdoors can be very difficult for people. And I am very sad when I visit care homes and I discover that the garden area is not getting somebody into the garden area, one of the residents every day, is not part of their care plan, and it should be. And basically, with all those challenges, understanding your own world is pretty difficult. So how can design help? It'll help, as I say, different people in different ways, but really trying to ease anxiety for people, try and compensate for the sensory loss that they experience, help them get around and help them understand, the time of day. Natural light's wonderful for doing that. help to regulate the circadian rhythms by access to natural light and night and dark, acknowledge the fact that memory is disturbed, and just try and make places safer. Now, a lot of the work that we did when I used to work at the King's Fund in London was around a programme that supported design for people in hospital. It was the first one that had been done, certainly in the UK, first work that's been done in the UK. Sterling had done a lot of work on care homes, but there's been very little work done on hospitals. I'm not going to go through the program or anything, but I want you to know where some of the things, particularly the assessment tools that Jen is going to talk about later, really came from. They came from the people that we had the pleasure of working with on about, I suppose it was about 60 or so sites, specifically looking at improving environments for people living with dementia. That was in hospitals, care homes, hospices, and the prison service. So quite a number of areas where we worked. Going back to care homes for a minute, during the work we were undertaking with care homes, we found quite a number of common issues. Now, these may be common to those of you who are living in care homes still, but hopefully they may have gone away because you understand a little bit more about dementia-friendly design. But really poor lighting, particularly in corridors and things, and no ability really to change light levels. Colour and contrast was missing. Somebody had been out with the magnolia paint. Signage to toilets. I will just say a few words about signage. I know that I've had discussions with people running care homes about whether signage is appropriate in what is somebody's home. I think if you can't find the loo and you desperately need the loo, signage is actually quite important. And we have experience too of enabling people to have some signage at home. So I'm afraid I'm in favour of signage, provided it's right. Poor flooring. You often go into care homes and find somebody's taped over bits of the floor, which because there's some problem with the carpet or something. And that, again, they've done it to make sure there isn't a trip hazard, but it doesn't look very good. People don't think a lot about noise, particularly in dining rooms, which can be very, very noisy for care home residents if there are a lot of people eating together. And again, little space to help somebody have their meal. Some care homes are very large and there can be no spaces at all to sit and have a rest while you're walking around, and people can get tired. Very few clocks in bedrooms, few calendars so that people understand this, the day of the month and the seasons if they're able, and little engagement, sadly, in meaningful activity. And I think that's a pretty bad thing if you've got people at home who have nothing they want to, nothing for them to do except probably watch something they don't want to watch on the television because it's been left on by the staff. I know that sounds a bit harsh, but it's reality. So I'm not going to go through all the design areas. There's plenty of writing on this, and we'll talk about the assessment tools, which are free to access from the University of Worcester a bit later. But I think I'm going to go through some key things that I think are important. First thing is the need for colour and contrast. There's a plate there with some white food on it, and if you look at the left-hand side, it's very, very difficult to distinguish the food. And I had a friend who told a story that when she went in to see her mother, who was living with dementia in hospital, for her Christmas dinner, her mother was eating the peas, and her daughter said, "Well, aren't you going to eat your turkey and your potatoes?" And she said, "There aren't any there. I can't see them." It was food on a white plate. So really important, if this is a problem for an individual who's living with dementia, to make sure you have some coloured plates where the fruit will stand out. Exactly the same thing is really important about toilet seats. As Jen knows, I have a variety of pictures of toilets in all sorts of places, but the toilet seat and the rails really do need to contrast with the floor and the wall and the sanitary ware. The need to maximise natural light. This picture is from a supported housing development, and people were being asked to walk into dark areas, sense the lighting. It can be adjusted. It should always be adjusted, not only for one particular area, but the following area along a corridor, so that you're not asking people to walk into dark areas, which can be very frightening. And I'm sure you all know that black floor mats can be seen as a hole to step over. Black lines on the floor can equally well be seen as a hole to step over. So if you're having a mat on the floor, it needs to be the same colour as the flooring. And what we're looking for here in terms of difference, if you're thinking about a toilet seat, is you need 30% difference in light reflectant value between two surfaces to make as sure as we possibly can be that people will be able to see them. We've got another couple of pictures here. We've got an extremely shiny floor. This is actually from a hospital environment, but it's probably the best picture I have of a shiny floor. And not only that, it's compounded by a lot of pattern and some black. So that floor to me looks pretty wet and slippery, and I don't think I'd like particularly to walk on it. Patterns also can look as though they're moving. So on walls here, we've got quite a patterned sofa and some patterned carpet. Quite difficult if you think all those things are moving around. I don't think you'd really want to sit on any of that. Possibly the table, actually, which is about the only thing that isn't patterned there. And again, talk about signage. It's really important. And it should include both an image and text. And you will know that there are many firms on the market that provide images and text signage for people living with dementia. And some of it may be up to personal preference as to what particular one you like. I'm just showing you these two because they're really bad examples of signage. The one on the left, I took a very, very long time ago. It's actually the door to a hospital ward, but I'm sure I could have gone into some care homes and taken a similar photo. Basically, the top sign is the visiting hours. That obviously wasn't working terribly well. And so the second sign has also got exactly the same information on it. And believe it or not, so is the third sign. So sometimes it's about our communications isn't particularly good. That first sign should have been absolutely fine, but putting another sign on and then another sign that all say the same thing strikes me as not being terribly helpful. The best excuse I've had for this from people I've talked to about it was that the bottom one was for somebody in a wheelchair, but I don't believe that for 1 minute. And the other thing, this other signage is from a supported housing development, and you can't read it. I mean, it's hopeless. It's terribly small. It's on top of a pattern surface. Your hope of actually finding where you want to go is pretty minimal. So just a word about signage. This is actually from a document about design for neurodiversity more widely, but it's about the best sort of image I've been able to find. So signage needs to be regularly placed. Think of every decision point when you're walking down a corridor. Do I go left or right, or what do I do? Good viewing height, that's recommended is 1.2 meters off the floor. Be very careful and that it's really clear visually. It contrasts with the surface and it uses symbols and words. And here, as I say, this extract from this report is about directing people. Confirm it again. If you're signing the toilets, you may need 2 or 3 to get you to the right place, and then actually identify on the door that people have reached the toilet in something you can read as well. So points of interest are great because they can help people wayfind. Artworks and objects are fantastic, but not these sorts of things. These are murals. One is, I think, supposed to create an environment that is near the sea. This particular care home was not near the sea. It's clearly in a corridor to me because you can see the handrail. But if I was walking along, I might well get confused as to where I was. And these two poor ladies, I don't know if they think they're outside or inside because they've got a brick wallpaper at the bottom and a road name. So if you're already a bit confused about where you are, this will not help. So just use common sense. Here are a few of what can go wrong. The there's some lovely artworks here in this care home, but they're right near the ceiling and they're so small that nobody will be able to see them. There is a fashion for wallpapers, some very nice wallpapers, some not so nice. This one has books on it. It was obviously meant to be an alcove. It's in some supported housing development. But somebody with dementia might spend a long time trying to get those books off the shelves because it will look like shelves of books in the library. Not a good thing, and equally well, highly patterned, say, a highly patterned wallpaper with roses on it, or some other cakes I've seen and various other things. People will try and get the rose or the cake off the wall. Not very good. Plain things are better. And the last one's a seat, which doesn't really look like a seat. I'm sure that the owners probably spent an awful lot of money getting somebody to make it, possibly out of a fallen tree, because it was in a big garden up north. But it really doesn't, I wouldn't know I could sit on that. So through all this work, we've developed some overarching design principles. I'm not going to go through these in any detail at the moment, but that's what our design principles look like. They are important in the fact that if you go back to them, and they are available on our website, you can really judge if something is going to work or not. The key thing that we're trying to do here is to ease decision making for people living with dementia, reduce their agitation and distress, encourage them to continue to be independent and socialize, promote their safety, and enable them to continue activities of daily living. And we do that by making things legible, understandable, helping them to orientate, lots of natural light, getting them outside wherever we can. Give good wayfinding clues so that people don't get lost. There's nothing worse than feeling you're lost somewhere and not knowing the way. Things that are familiar, and that's particularly true of things like taps, toilets, all sorts of things, spoons, knives, all that sort of thing. Normal, normal shape, what I would have been used to all my life, and meaningful activity. And that can be so many different things. Not at the moment for me at home because I've now got a hose ban, as many of you will have. But taking out the watering can and watering a few plants every day is really good, meaningful activity. So it doesn't have to be anything too complicated. I just want to emphasize again, if you've got a garden space that you can use, this is from a care home, then for goodness sake, use it. It should absolutely be part of somebody's care plan to get outside every day. And what's wrong in going outside in the rain, as long as you've got a raincoat on? Absolutely nothing. And also, if it's snowing and it's safe to go outside, then go and enjoy it. Or there are leaves on the ground in autumn, go and crunch them, do all sorts of things. So I really want to push, outside spaces at the moment. We do need more research about floor to ceiling images. I know I've talked a little bit about murals before. They can cause immense confusion for people. This was a telephone box in a care home, and somebody tried, you could see, because it was stuck up with sellotape, you could see that somebody had tried to open the handle to get in and make a phone call. So do be really, really careful with this sort of image. Assistive technology is not in its infancy, but we don't really know quite what helps and what doesn't. It can help quite a lot of people living at home, but it may not help others. So again, it's very individual. Nobody really knows about virtual reality, about whether it's a good thing, perhaps in helping somebody be calm or not. And we still really don't understand about the use or otherwise of companion robots. We have adapted some of the work that we've done and our design principles for a booklet on making your home dementia friendly, freely available from the Alzheimer's Society. And those are the things that we've actually just really concentrated on. Again, very, very similar to what I've been talking about care homes. Keeping things familiar and knowing where things are, really important. Don't let your relatives come in one day and move everything, like where your keys and things are, because you might not remember where they are next. And again, this emphasis on nature. So during the work we've been doing, particularly the work at the King's Fund, the people we were working with, the staff from care homes and from hospitals, said they understood now what they could do, but how could they assess what they needed to do? And so with them, we developed some assessment tools. And they were designed to be very easy to use by everyone. That's not just staff, that's people living with dementia, carers, estate staff, clinical staff, anybody. They were obviously based on the research evidence that was around, and they're not a pass-fail. Assessment is something that can be carried out year on year, month on month, or wherever you need to do it. There's no pass-fail here. Repeated over time to demonstrate improvement, and absolutely free to access. We've been very clear about that in all the work that we've done on assessment tools. So they have 7 criteria that we know that are important to people living with dementia, and those are around meaningful interaction, well-being, a lot about light, making sure people can eat and drink and move, that they remain continent, that they know where they are, and they're calm and secure. So each of the tools uses those criteria, and they are available now for wards, hospitals, care homes, housing and health centres. I was a bit anti doing one specifically for gardens because, as I hope you've recognised while I've been speaking, I do believe they're part of they should be a part of every environment, be it hospitals, care homes or housing, and be used as such as part of the environment. But really because of the massive push that there was around outside spaces during the pandemic, we did produce one for gardens in 2021. So this is what they look like. The reason I think they've been successful is probably because they're free, but also because they do a lot of things at once. For each of them, there is a rationale about why something is important. So this is one of the ones that looks at eating and drinking. And in the side, I know you won't be able to read this, but on the side there, it explains why white food might not be seen on a white plate, which we've talked about already this afternoon. So really important that people understand. And one of the things we didn't expect but has happened is that actually they proved to be an extremely good education tool. There's then a set of questions, and then the questions can be ranked 1 to 5. 1 for really, we need to do quite a bit more work, to 5, this is fine, we don't need to do anything about this. Then there's a space to add comments, available free to download as a PDF. So how have they been used? Well, they've been used to assess the environment, but they've also been used by people to make a really good, big and good case for improvement. It helps you prioritize which areas are going to need most work, and that may be lighting, which can be expensive, but equally well, it may be some very simple things like clearing clutter. I'm not doing it this afternoon, but I do have a presentation on some top tips, and the first thing to do is actually get hold of a skip. I could probably do that at home as well. Small scale improvements have been made. I've talked about the education power of them. Change and improve care practice. The minute you start looking at your environment with a fresh set of eyes, you begin to think about, well, why do we do that? Why do we do that? And increase partnership with family carers and local communities who can get involved in the assessments. I've talked about making your home dementia friendly. We also have a book available free at Worcester called Making Your Garden Dementia Friendly. We did some work locally with some local village halls some years ago now, actually, around making village halls more dementia friendly, and that would apply to church halls and other places as well. There's a little bit of a guide in that about some simple things to remember, like if you're going to turn the lights off, tell everybody you're going to do it before you do it. I mean, it's all fairly simple stuff. None of this is rocket science, by the way. And also the work that we did, particularly the home guide, informed the dementia dwelling grant across Worcestershire, which is still in use, and it means people who are diagnosed with a diagnosis of dementia can apply for a small grant for small aids and adaptations at home. Probably the most popular things were a whiteboard so that relatives, friends could write things that were going to happen on the whiteboard, and a big button telephone probably were the most popular things from that scheme. This is an excerpt from the home one, just to give you some idea about how they're structured. So this is about flooring. Why is it important? Exactly the same as the rationale in the other assessment tools, some practical tips, and then a checklist. We've also done work for the Royal College of Chiropractors who wanted an assessment tool for their practitioners, and most recently some work for Assura that designs, builds, and then leases primary care premises. And that was in collaboration not only with Assura, but also with the Learning Disability and Autism charity. So it covers not only dementia, but also some other neurodiverse conditions. Two things you will get this publication, two things you ought to know about really. One is a health building note, which looks at the design, dementia-friendly design for hospitals, care homes, and supported housing. And the other is a more recent document, which is from the British Standards Institute, called Design for the Mind. And that looks at neurodiversity, and it includes dementia as well as other neurodiverse conditions. But just a friendly warning here, don't try and load it on a small computer because it's very large. Well, both of them are actually. I'm going to hand over to Jen now, who's going to talk about one of our more recent developments.
Yeah, so over the years, the assessment tools that Sarah's been talking about, we've had multiple requests of it'd be really great if they were able to be digitized. So, for most people, getting a PDF, printing it out and going around ticking it off or making comments on a paper copy is great, but some people would prefer it to be digitized. And we were very fortunate that a few years ago now, funding from Betsy Cadwallader University Health Board in North Wales enabled us to create an app version of the assessment tools. And that is, thanks to that funding, that is still free for anyone to download and use. And it's available in both English and Welsh. As you can see from the screen, it can be used on different platforms, so you're not restricted to, if you've only got Android, you're not out of it. You're still able to download it onto your device. And basically, the key features are it's in a similar format and rationale with the criteria and the questions, the existing tools. So we've tried to make it although it's a digitized version, it's very similar and should be familiar to anyone that's used the assessment tools previously. As I say, they are free to download, and one of we think a bonus of it is that you only need to have an internet connection to be able to download the app in the first place. And if you want to export anything from it after that. So when you're walking around a care home, going out into the garden, using the assessment tools, you don't need to be physically connected to the internet, making it a bit more accessible in places where a Wi-Fi connection isn't necessarily guaranteed. As I said, it can be used on any device. So whether that's a laptop, a tablet, your phone, it works on all of those. And you only need to download it once, because although the assessment tools, there are 6 different versions, all of those are contained within the app. So when you go into it, you can choose which one you're interested in, or maybe you want to do both. Maybe you want to do a ward one and a hospital one and also a garden one, and they're all there within the same app. And again, they're not just a once-off. You can do multiple assessments of in the same environment, using the same version of the app, as many times as you wish, to see how things are improving over time. And your assessments will stay on your device until you, as a user, choose to delete them or do something else with them. So it's not like you do it and it disappears. It's there for you to come back to if you want to. If you go onto our website, all of the tools that Sarah has been talking about are available on there. And we also have some useful how-to guides, some short video clips, and comparison spreadsheets, which I'll mention a bit more in a moment. And there's a place for you to download not only the paper versions of the assessment tools, but also to click on a link and it brings you to this screen where you can download the app. And it takes you through, you can choose whether you want the English version or the Welsh version. And the image on the left just gives you a bit of an idea of what it's. It doesn't work on a still screen, but it sort of scrolls through some of the different screenshots from what it looks like in the app. And this is what it looks like when you actually click through into it. This is the garden one. Yes, it is. So the first image shows you the rationale, so it matches up with what Sarah was saying on the left-hand side of the PDF version. It tells you why it's important. And if you click onto the other tab at the top of the screen, it takes you through to the assessment questions. And for each question, you can give it a scoring out of 5. So the same as with paper versions. You can add comments to say things that you're doing particularly well or things that you think might need to address. And if something's not relevant or not applicable to your particular environment, you can also highlight that. And once you've completed an assessment, you can do it all in one go. You can come back to it over time. You can get a summary of your whole assessment in one place. So this is generated automatically via the app. You can choose to end your assessment and then export it either as a PDF or a CSV, so similar to an Excel spreadsheet. So you can get it out of your device in that format. And then you can maybe choose to share it with other people to say, look, I've done the assessment. This is what I found. These are the areas that we're doing really well. But, you know, the ones where we're down in the 1s and 2s, maybe those are the ones that we want to focus on initially. And even once you've exported your results, your assessment still stays on your device until you choose to delete it. And we chose to have the ability to download your assessment and export it because we figured if you are, maybe you're overseeing a number of care homes within your organisation, or maybe you're overseeing several hospitals or wards, people can send you their assessments so you can see how different wards or different care homes are getting on. So it's not necessarily they're doing better than us, but actually how are we doing and getting the overall picture. And we have comparison spreadsheets, as I said, so it will upload those the CSV versions. It will upload those into a comparison spreadsheet and put it in nice colours so you can sort of see it at a quick glance. The red areas are the ones that maybe we should be targeted on addressing first. Some key links for you. So the top one is our main address. The second one, it's rather wieldy. We did have a nice short version, and then obviously the university website got updated and it all broke. So you can have the long version. Make of that what you will. But that one link is where you will find all of the resources that have been talked about today. So all of the PDF versions to download, the link through to download the app, the home, the garden, all those different tools that Sarah mentioned are all available on our website. And we have also publications based on the work that we did, particularly around some of the work with Assura. And there's also the areas that Sarah was mentioning about, some of the things that are maybe less well understood and getting different perspectives on it. So that the bottom one about the use of trump line might be one that is of particular interest. So and just to round it off, if you have a particular interest, especially around the environments, I'd like to bring to your attention shameless plug, not gonna lie. We run a fully online postgraduate certificate at the Association for Dementia Studies, and one of our modules that you can study is specifically around enabling environments for people living with dementia. So if you want to go into this in more detail and learn about all the surrounding information and research around environments, then that's one that I would recommend that would be of interest.
Right, and just really to finish off with a nice picture of a lovely garden. So there we are. That makes the garden, hopefully makes the garden point. But we do have beautiful outside spaces in this country and we should use them a bit more, all of us.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks very much indeed. Wonderful. And what a flourish at the end to find out about the app. So the name of the app is the Assessment app, and it's downloadable from wherever you get your apps from. you know?
No. It's downloadable from our website.
Right. Okay.
Okay, it's something called, this gets technical, a progressive web app, which means it's slightly different from an
Mhm.
app that you would buy from the App Store. What it means, as Jen has explained, is that once you've downloaded it once, you don't need to be attached to
Download it
Wi-Fi.
again. Yeah.
And we were very keen when we were working with a fantastic developer on this for that to be the case, because
Mhm.
certainly in our experience, both in quite a number of hospital environments still, and in care homes, there isn't Wi-Fi throughout the building. And
Mm.
if you're going around trying to assess something, or a garden
Absolutely.
indeed,
Yeah.
you're not going to have Wi-Fi. So the whole point was you could use it offline.
Great.
You only
Okay.
need to be online to download it and to export your results.
Okay.
Otherwise, you
That's
can use
great.
it.
Thank you. Thank you. But anyway, you can hear the applause, and lots of people are saying, great webinar. Thank you very much. But I'm just going to pick up on a few questions with you because if not murals, says Victoria, what else? I mean, we don't want magnolia, we don't want great long corridors that are really off-putting. So how else are we going to strike
Right.
that balance between an interesting wander to your room without having the seaside thrust upon
Right.
us?
Okay. Points of interest is the answer, and they one of the most successful things I think has been photographs of local buildings that people
Hmm.
may know if it's in a care home and you've got some fantastic local buildings in your local town. The Historical Society have probably got some that they'll actually, because if you explain what you want it for, they'll probably give you the rights to take them away and have them made pretty big. Anything you put on a wall should have a frame around it, and the frame should contrast with the walls. It doesn't mean you can't have, pale pink walls if you want to. Just don't make sure you put the roses on top of them. Um, Things to touch can be really good as well. A lovely piece of wooden sculpture or something that people
Hmm.
really enjoy touching. But you can make quite interesting corridors. Don't put mirrors in the corridor. I didn't
Mm.
put it in, but I have some photographs of a corridor that was totally covered in mirrors. And the problem is, as you will probably all know, is that people living with dementia won't necessarily recognize themselves. So they think there's somebody following them down the corridor or following them into the loo.
I know.
So you can make really interesting spaces. If you've got a little nook in the corridor, or when one corridor at a T junction, pop a chair in there. Somebody might want to take a seat. None of this is very complicated. But please, we've given you the information from Sterling there, which is in much more depth than we could
Yeah.
cover today. But I've known people try and walk into a field because
Mm.
that's been from floor to ceiling mural, and it does happen. So please avoid it.
Thank you very much. What are your views on classic front doors for each individual bedroom? How are we going to, cue and clue people towards their bedroom doors, but not,
Okay.
put.
Two things. Always use it was on, I think, on the signage slide. Use two clues for people, cues or clues, a number and possibly a picture. And it's very successful if you've got and this works on hospital beds as well. If you've got a range of photographs, say of flowers or steam engines or whatever you fancy, get somebody to pick the one they want, put it on their door with a number. And
Mhm.
it won't always work, but it probably will work a lot better. You can also paint the doors a different color, but don't start putting some of these vinyl masky things on top of it. If it's a door that you don't want people to go through, it's a staff only door, then
Mm.
paint it the same color as the walls and it will almost disappear. This happens quite a lot in hospital settings where people are trying to get out of the ward, and can happen in care homes. But if
Mm.
you paint it
Mm.
the same color as the wall around it, make sure that the handle is not quite so obvious, but it's okay
Mm.
for staff to find it.
Mm.
And create a distraction like a piece of artwork on the side. You will probably find that very helpful.
Yes, yes. No, that all those are really good ideas. Look, there's a lot of questions really about retrofitting, Jennifer and Sarah, because you're stuck with what you've got. And one of them, of course, is black holes and shiny surfaces. So how do we make the best, given we've got small budgets? I think one or two questions are about we've got small budgets and we know these things aren't, high quality or, the standard we want. How can we do something about them?
Well, the first thing I think we both would say is use the assessment tool because that will enable you to have discussions with other people about it.
Okay.
So you've begun to get a bit of evidence about why something isn't quite right. Shiny floors are often, particularly in public spaces in this country, a result of over buffing. So try and desist with too much buffing.
Hmm.
But they started off being buffed an awful lot in hospitals because of cleanliness, and there are other products on the market now. If you can change flooring, do so. I was a little bit suspect of some wood effect flooring, and I thought it might look as though it was a pattern moving for people and might be difficult.
Yes.
But I have seen it very successfully used. If you're careful about the pattern, well, not the pattern, but the actual, the design of the flooring, that is helpful. And so that is something you can do if and when something needs changing. The probably the least cost effective thing to do is to try and change mats where you can.
Hmm. Yeah.
And try and get them as near a color to the floor as possible. They can still do what they need to do, but without people looking as though it was a black hole to
Yeah.
step over.
Mm.
The worst ones, I think, are in shops when it's raining and they put these massive, great black things out. I'm sure we've all seen them when you go to the supermarket.
Mm. Mm.
Um, but no, I think I'd try and particularly the other thing to do is to watch people. Watch your residents.
Mm.
Is there a place where they're actually then obviously not happy when they're walking somewhere? Is there somewhere in the building where people fall over more? That sort of thing. Do a little bit of, I know I've said I don't believe in audit, but on this particular
Yeah.
occasion,
No.
have a little look at audit about where things are happening. Is there too much noise in the dining room? Is there any way you could subdivide the dining room a little bit?
That's right.
Or if you have a local art group that could provide you with some artworks, actually those are placed on wooden battens that reduce noise. You might be able to put those in the dining room. So there
Mm.
are lots of general little things that you can do. And we've also found schools really helpful in providing artworks of local environments. Some of the art may not be quite what you or I would choose at home, but it can brighten up a place amazingly.
Mm. No, those are all really good ideas. I think
Jen's
particularly,
going to say something now. So,
oh,
Sorry.
go on, Sarah, particularly the ones about observation. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was just going to pick up on that because I think sometimes when resources and funding are particularly stretched and you've maybe carried out an assessment and identified two or three things that you want to try and make a
Hmm.
change to, but you haven't got the funding or capacity to change all three. That's particularly when the observation side of it can come in to
Mm.
say, okay, we know this isn't great, but actually at the moment with you know the particular range of residents that we have at this moment in time, it's not necessarily our priority because people don't seem to be having as much of an issue as they do with the second thing that we've
Yes. Yeah.
identified. So I think that the observation side can be really useful to help
Mm.
prioritize at that next level.
Hmm. Oh, right. I mean, I think observation's always useful. And like you say, and I think the other thing you said, Jennifer, is people's condition changes over time. And what was useful and helpful initially, one has to keep on re-observing, if you like, or have a sort of watching remit, because you suddenly find people are experiencing problems and paying that attention. And also, obviously it helps you to prioritize if you're on a limited budget. We've got a few more questions here, and one of them is about, gosh, sorry, this is a touch screen. Mine's a touch screen. So, what about glass? Very big windows. best practice suggestions. Some care homes and retirement communities being built with massive, gorgeous, large windows, but they're pretty horrid, and very off-putting.
Well, I mean, the first thing you have to do is watch for heat gain. But I
Mm,
can say that particularly now because we're having a hot summer. And also make sure that it's great to have natural light, but you may want to filter it in some way or
mm,
other. It depends, obviously, where the area is. Conservatories can be particularly difficult because they can get
right.
very, very hot and
Yeah.
very, very cold. But there are measures that you can get around to actually help with heat gain too, in particular. If you think everybody from the local community can look in, which happens occasionally, then you can put film on, but I would just use plain film, which will stop that happening. But we really should value the natural light that we've got. So don't be too upset if you've got large windows, but think about how you can manage them, I think is
Mm,
the thing to do.
mm. I think that they're all excellent suggestions, Jennifer, because and actually you start at the beginning, someone who's involved in multidisciplinary conversations with architects and commissioners and all sorts of people at the beginning of care home builds. What you say is, no, that's not the lovely place, the south facing place to put a conservatory, because what's going to happen in summer? So some of these things are really difficult because they've already been done and built. But there are lots of ways in which you can retrofit. Um, I'm going to have to stop in a minute, unfortunately, and there are lots of other questions. Um, you know, I mean, this has clearly been, you know, just still getting feedback saying it's clearly been so informative. And there is so much, the optimistic messages, there is so much that you can do, you know. I think it's someone saying, it's convincing senior management that, steps need to be taken to improve the built
That,
environment for the
that, yeah,
for the
that's where the assessment tools are brilliant
right. So
because you can actually show them, I've done this and we need to do that. If you're in a group of care homes doing them together, well, as Jen said, we've got comparison sheets on the website. You can absolutely define for senior management where are the areas you need to make some investment.
mm, mm, mm,
And things can be done when normal maintenance is done. Do you know what I mean? It may
yes.
be, sometimes people can bring forward a bit of capital because they were going to do it next year. They could do it
Hmm.
this year, but you need to make your case. Times are hard for everybody, but the
Yes.
assessment tools have proved absolutely invaluable to people.
Hmm.
They're easy to do. They're not complicated. It's not rocket science, but you can make a really good case for change.
Mm, mm. No, that's a wonderful, wonderful full response, Jennifer. And I'd love to respond to Di, who's saying it'd be great to have another session with these speakers with more Q&A time. It sounds like a kind of consultancy slot is desired. But perhaps the person who's saying, what about if there's no openers on our windows? It sounds as though you make the case for opening the windows, and the app can help. So I'm going to stop at 3 o'clock. Mel has put into the chat, I know, the two links to our dementia community webinars, which will be taking a break over August, folks. We'll be back in September, but that's where the list of dementia community webinars are. And dementia community Eventbrite, you're really urged to sign up so that you get notification of our webinars. And all I can say really with is it 166, 170 people online, some of whom had to go. It was brilliant. Dublin, Australia, I can see some of the far-flung places we've reached, but it's obviously been tremendously successful. Thank you so much, Jennifer, and thank you so much, Sarah Waller from the University of Worcester. Thank you for giving us a wonderful, and everybody's waving and saying fantastic. So do go away on the crest of a wave or in that beautiful field of, wildflowers that you've shown us. I hope you get some fresh air anyway. So I get to end this webinar and say Dementia Community really thanks you very much indeed. And everybody do stay, safe during August. keep cool, and come back and join us in September for another series of wonderful webinars. And of course, we have got our UKDC Congress coming up on the 17th and 18th of November. We shall be at Bridgewater Hall in Manchester. Early bird tickets are on sale now, and we will have sessions on design, technology, dementia, and care. So, do go and, the program will come out in September, but do go and book yourself onto that while the early birds are live. So thanks very much, everybody. Thanks very much, Jennifer and Sarah. Take care now. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Right. That's it, Mel. We can stop recording. That's it. Okay. Thank you.